that I can take minutes from it and not have to write while we talk.
Very smart. Do you want me to take notes, Amy?
Yeah, sure. We can compare to-do lists at the end.
Okay.
All right.
I'll mute myself so I can do that.
Okay,
Click
thank
back.
you. All right, well, let's get started with the group we have here. Everybody has a copy of the agenda from the meeting, for the meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda for tonight? All right,
Have
and
anything?
are there any corrections to the minutes from the February meeting?
Nope.
All
I
right.
don't have any.
All right. Next on the agenda is public participation, and I see Claire is joined the meeting. Claire, do you have anything you'd like to comment on?
Not now,
Okay.
but thanks for asking.
Sure.
Amy, I'll just jump in now real quick and just introduce myself to everybody. I'm the City Commission's liaison to the Communication Committee. The mayor and the commissioners, we divide up the different committees and we serve as a liaison to various committees, and it rotates. So I just want to let you know that I probably won't be joining all of your meetings, but if there's anything you need in terms of resources or anything like that, from the city, or anything you'd like to see different or anything like that, just feel free to reach out. You can call me, email me, and then I can bring your concerns back to the commission. That's part of my job as a liaison. So I don't have a vote. I'm not an actual part of the committee, but just here to support you if I can in any way.
Thank you. We do have somebody that is phoning in. Last four digits are 8863. Is that
Yes.
Sheila?
It is Shara Reed.
Shara,
Hi,
all right.
Amy and
Great.
everyone. Yep. Hello.
All right. All right. Now we are on to the actual meat of the meeting, and that is to continue the discussion on the communications audit and consider next steps. Last time we met in February, that was the first time that the audit had been shared with the committee, and there were some questions and requests for additional information that I addressed in my cover memo to you. Let me see. Let me refresh my memory because this went out a week ago. All right. Clarification from the City Commission on the direction for the communication survey. They do want it to be based on feedback from residents on how they prefer to receive information from the city and what kind of information is important. And then there was a question about why Commissioner Olsman had requested a blog. And he just basically said that he thought it was a good idea to talk about the city, that there wasn't any specific message or reason, just another opportunity for us to get the word out about things that are going on in Huntington Woods. And then I think the last request was for some statistics on our website as to what pages were the most popular pages that residents or visitors went to. So were there any questions on the information that went out on the website and the most popular pages? So I think I sent that to you. Did I believe I did. Sent it with the agenda?
The list of most visited pages?
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so if there aren't any follow-up questions on the information that came out with the agenda, I guess the next step would be to have a discussion about whether or not the committee wants to recommend a communication audit and have a discussion on that. I'm gonna just step out here for a minute and Sorry about that. It seemed kind of rude to start coughing and hacking a Zoom meeting when something went down the wrong pipe there. All right, so communication audit, or I guess survey, communication survey. Eileen, let's start with you. Do you have some particular ideas or thoughts of things that we could probe or ask residents about to get some more information?
Yeah, I was just curious, and I think that when we first spoke about this, it might have been our first meeting, Amy, and I don't believe you were there in person, Lynn. I'm trying to recall the first actual in-person gathering that we all had. One of the things I was wondering is, from a data standpoint, what people think of the communication, how would they like to receive it, what they, where they go for their up to the minute Huntington Woods information. I was curious about that because I know outside of Facebook and an occasional email, I think there are gaps from an information standpoint of, in past years, finding out that things were transitioned or closed and going to the rec center in person, finding out, and there's no sign on the door. Just was curious from our stakeholders or our audiences. And I would definitely love to hear your thoughts, Lynn, as far as those types of questions, something simple and easy. I don't know what the participation rate would be and the success of that, but I was curious about if that had been done and how that would look and feel.
Did you want me to comment on that? Or Amy, do you want me to?
No, please.
So I think that one of the disconnects seems to be that not everybody knows about the different communication sources that are available. And so we have to figure out, how are they not hearing this? Like, how can we better connect people with, because I think there's a lot of information that goes out. Amy's pretty diligent about the e-blast that goes out every week. But I'll be honest that, I've lived here for 6 years, and before I started working with Amy, I didn't know there was an e-blast, but I didn't seek it out. And then I started getting on it, and I'm like, oh, there's all this information. So if I didn't know that, I'm just trying to figure that out, like the pieces of the puzzle. So I think that that's useful. I do know that the pool survey that we sent today had a lot of responses very quickly. So that was heartening to see that there was so much participation in a survey. Amy, how many people did we send to? Do you know?
One list was 575. There were additional that I emailed links to, and then I think another 29 hurricane members. So
like
a
600.
little over 600.
Do we have any responses yet? I was just curious. Sorry to interrupt.
Within the first 2 hours, there were, what did I say, 115 responses? Within the first 2 hours. And we're giving it like a day or two, and then we'll tally everything. But I just wanted to see like how many have responded. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a really good percentage in the first 2 hours. So I'm hopeful that, but maybe the pool is much more interesting than how do you want to receive communication? I don't know. So, yeah, that's just my thought. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Is the pool survey being listed publicly or only specifically emailed to people?
It was emailed to people, residents that purchased passes in 2019. We're targeting people that had pre-COVID pool experience, and then describe what we think a modified pool experience would look like to deal with COVID, and ask residents for their feedback on how interested they would be in participating.
I think in regards to surveying to find out how people want to receive information, I find that when I do surveys, the best response comes when I'm upfront saying, this is a 1-question survey, or this is a 2-question survey. So they know exactly what they're getting into. A lot of it, I think, in terms of getting an open rate, is making sure that it's really clear upfront. And like the first thing they see is how much time it's going to take them to deal with it.
And I think it would come down to, I agree with that, Erin, how quick, how easy, can people do it from any tablet, that type of thing. Just to ensure it's interactive.
Okay, Will, your thoughts on a communication survey?
Yeah, I apologize because I know I wasn't here for the February meeting, which is the last in-person meeting. So I'm playing a little bit of catch up on some of the stuff. I think in large part, I would agree with comments made just in terms of, I think for me as a committee member, understanding just benchmark of where we are, where people are receiving information now, what is most preferred, is helpful for me, right? Because I think I mean, this is only my second meetings and the ones that we've had, but start understanding kind of the foundation of where we sit currently. So, and that way I think a survey would be helpful, but I also want to be cognizant of duplicative efforts that maybe have already been done in the past, either by the committee or by Amy or Lynn, right? So, so yeah, that's kind of my only comment. I think it would be helpful for me as a committee member though. So I guess in large part, despite being kind of coming from behind here, I think it would be helpful.
Good point. And we
And-
have not done this before, so you haven't missed anything yet. Jeff,
This is Shara. Go ahead.
No, go ahead,
This is Shara
Shara.
on the phone. So, sure, thank you.
Mhm.
My comment is that we might consider in fielding a survey, particular resident groups that we're especially interested to hear from, like to consider some of the segmentation. If there are things that are what I would say like commissioner, mayor priorities that really need strong communications that are coming down the pike,
Mhm.
To get a sense of who the respondents are, even thinking about oversampling, or if there are certain subsets of residents that we believe are like harder to reach for whatever reason. So just want to make sure that we're minding that as we go.
And not to complicate things even further, but I think maybe a point that I don't know if it's been discussed already, but just building off that, right? As we're trying to make sure we're reaching different segments and populations within the city, it's sort of also which platforms does the survey go out on, right? Because that'll affect kind of the people that respond and who receives it and sort of engages with it.
Jeff, your thoughts?
I agree with everything that's been said so far, especially with what Aaron said about keeping the survey limited so that people are encouraged to participate and respond without investing too much time. But I think another thing that could be added perhaps as a question is whether or not people would like push notifications on city news. It seems like people are more and more conditioned to receive push notifications on their phones for different news items. And I mean, everything from sports scores from ESPN or Instagram notifications when someone's commented on your post. So with that in mind, I think that might be a helpful question. My only concern with that would be, as Will mentioned, making sure that you're able to reach everybody. And there's a lot of seniors who probably aren't getting push notifications on their phones if they have even tablets or smartphones. So we may not reach that segment, but with so many people on their smartphones today, it seems to me it would be a good tactic to try to reach people there with news.
I agree.
Amy, can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
So yeah, just a question. I'm wondering in the last few months if there are things that you or our commissioners or mayor have learned and lifted up about how effective communication, if effective is even an appropriate word here, looks like in this COVID context. Are you getting feedback or questions that you're kind of sensing what's kind of working for people or what's really not working for people that would be helpful for us to hear?
I can't think of any feedback that we're getting from people that aren't getting communication, because I'm only hearing for the people that are getting my communication. So Joe, are you still here? Because I know this was one of the things that the commission was interested in. Have the commission gotten feedback from residents about why we need to take a look at communication and improve it? So maybe some anecdotal stories that you might have heard.
I guess, yeah, I think we're looking at different mediums of communication where maybe we're not filling all the gaps. And then frequency of communication, I think, was an issue. Trying to think. Frequency. Oh, and then also, so we have all these things like the e-blast and stuff, but like I think it was said earlier, folks aren't signed up for it, so they don't know about it. I mean, I've paid out of my pocket to boost on Facebook and social media, you know, about these tools. And you mentioned when I paid to boost it, people have signed up. So, I mean, but I don't know that it's like my personal, you know, like responsibility to do that. Maybe the city could look for ways to promote it on social media, or you did the mailing with the water bill and that boosted it as well. So how can we get the message out about these communication mediums, the Nixle, the e-blast, the dial my calls, these different things that exist?
All right, thanks. Thank you.
Amy, do we know what percentage of residents subscribe to the e-blast, the weekly e-blast?
I have, I think 1,200 people are signed up, but they wouldn't all necessarily be residents, and there might be 2 people from the same household. So I just have a contact list. I don't have it broken down by household or if they're residents or not.
I see. Okay.
All right, well, prior to this, Lynn had gone online and was able to locate some communities that had done communication surveys. Remember way back in February when we had done that? So they're rather lengthy. So is this something that you would like to take a look at and see what other communities have done and maybe pull out some questions that you think would be appropriate for Huntington Woods? Or would you like Lynn and I to go through and pick out the ones that we think are most relevant? And although these surveys are long, it's because I printed them. I could send you links so that you could, you know, have access to them and take a look at them, and then we could, you know, pick out things that, keeping in mind that we do want it to be concise. But are there other questions like the push notifications I hadn't thought of before? Are there other things out there that we should be looking at? Is that it?
I think I would also be curious. I don't know about the rest of the group. If folks subscribe for information or participate in Nextdoor, and how often they go on their Huntington Woods Facebook, that type of thing. I was just curious. I don't know if I'm just the only one. You know, daily, several times a day. You know what I mean? Once a week, once a month. I think that, I mean, that's just my curiosity.
Yeah, it's probably a good question to find out how many residents are going there for news, even if it's not official.
Right.
I think that's right. I don't know, Amy and others, how you feel about Nextdoor, right? That's always kind of the danger with that. If people are using that as their primary news sources, that is not always official on Nextdoor. I think on one, I would love to take a look at the links and whether it's easiest just to send them all or maybe do some vetting of which ones I think are most relevant. But I think links to have on hand would be great to review. And I think for me too, it would also, or I think for maybe the committee in general, seeing the survey, our communication survey done, I think would maybe help focus our committee too in identifying what is our most successful communication, platform, or what is the one we want to focus on most improving, right? I mean, I think is that the e-blast? Is it a blog? Is it, so maybe to help kind of laser us in as well.
So I just want to clarify, Will, you're saying you'd like to see the survey links from other cities to get a sense of what they're asking, or you are interested to see from a survey that we do which communication channels are the most important to focus on because that's what residents are engaging with? Or did you say both?
Yeah, both. Sorry, I joined them together, but yes, I would like to see what other cities are asking, and then I was just saying for our own survey, right, I think we can start honing in on maybe which platform as a committee we really want to focus on improving or changing, or, you know, depending on kind of the results.
Thanks.
Shira, I'd like to go back to your comment on target groups, because of course the first thing that came to my mind were seniors, because usually we think of them as having a different communication needs. Were there other audiences that, or target audiences that you were thinking of besides seniors?
I would say, I mean, depending on what it is, we do a lot of programming in the city for parents would be another group. People, you know, with school age kids, people with, you know, kids under 5 or under school age as another potential segment. I also think about people who have disabilities. So in particular, people who have physical disabilities, and just how people need to receive information and what kind of engagement is most meaningful. And then actually, the other thing I wanted to raise is really the question about whether there might be appetite for doing like a parallel process in addition to the survey to really get more of a baseline understanding. I wonder if there are priorities or a couple of a priority that our commissioners might lift up that really would benefit from strong communications and thorough communications that we want to put our very best thinking into and do all the things, you know, all the channels, all the things, collect some usage data if we can, where that's available, and see, again, it doesn't really go baseline to what changes, but to actually see like what's possible if people are paying attention in a concerted way, as we would be, to ensuring the strongest and most robust possible communication around something that is already known as a city priority or a very much an upcoming priority.
Are you envisioning that we would prepare a list of what the city thinks are priorities and ask people to rank them, or just an open-ended question from residents, like what's on your mind type thing?
Where they're working on, like what are they working on as a priority?
Shira, sorry, you cut out there. Can you start again?
Yeah, sure. But I was thinking actually the priorities would be named by our commissioners and mayor.
All right.
So what is city planning, master planning, if that's due for an update, which I think it is or will be soon. Like, is there something that is a real life priority challenge that really needs robust communication that we could also use as a test case? So contributing all of our good thinking, like on this call, to try to to do robust communication, collect some data where we can, usage at least, and see how it goes. Getting a baseline.
If I understood it correctly, what is the group's thoughts? I didn't hear all of it. It went in and out, at least on my laptop, Shira, so I apologize. What is the group's thoughts on, not so much an open-ended question, but I know brevity is important with being mindful and respectful of people's times, those that go on to take part in the survey, but asking, is there something that's not being communicated, platform information, etc., that you would like to see? I don't know if there's, like a suggestion line or box, and it'd have to have a certain count limit because people could go on for days. But we may glean some really interesting suggestions, possibly. I think we would also have to be very prepared for feedback about the school experience, the pool, which is such a big topic, library and so on and so forth, tennis, and all of those transitions, we would have to be very prepared for not so much people firing off that frustration and, well, you should have done X or Y. So I'm thinking about this now, saying it out loud, but I'm curious what the group thinks on a question, what would you like to see type of a question. Obviously, it would be different verbiage.
Jeff, you have some thoughts on that?
I don't think it would hurt to have an open-ended question to see. I guess you just don't know until people respond. They might have someone might have a really good idea that hasn't been tried yet. I don't think it would hurt to throw that kind of question in there.
Will?
Yeah, I think as long as it was optional, just
Yeah.
an optional end comment box, right? I agree.
Yeah.
That's a
Have to have a limit.
throw a net out and see what comes back, and who knows, it could be something really useful. Just to share your comment though, also about running maybe a dual track, right, where maybe there was some sort of a pilot project, that's not the right word, but initiative, right, outside of the survey where this committee could, I think you were saying, right, maybe the master plan as a sort of like case study to try new things. Was that what you were saying? And it was coming in on my side, so.
It's just not, I'm at home, but it's just not working so great. But yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. Thank you.
All right. Aaron?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to that. If we do that at the end, again, it should, like Will said, it should definitely be optional, and it should not be included in the count of this is a 3-question survey or whatever it is. I just think we need to be really careful in order to make sure we maximize our responses and don't get people tuning out right away.
The other city surveys that were collected, how many questions did the other cities ask of their residents? Was it limited to a handful, or it sounds like they were long, so I'm wondering how extensive they were.
I have them here, but rather than go through them, I haven't looked at them since February.
Okay.
And I was able to find them and bring them home. So let me send out the links, and then everybody could take a look at it, and we'll be able to make our own opinion on whether or not they did a good job or it's something that could be improved on. All right, so I can work on the getting you out survey information, and we could start designing a survey, both the questions and also how to get the survey out, and the targeting the audiences and the parallel question we could talk about in July. The communication audit itself, I know we haven't looked at it since February. Do you want to keep this on the agenda and go back and take a look at some other suggestions or recommendations that were made and work on a couple of items at the same time, or just start with the survey, establish the baseline, and then go back and revisit the audit for other suggestions? Let's start with Shira. Let's start with you.
Well, because as I brought up, parallel doing both as well as potential for a pilot with piece of work that our commissioners and mayors, and I vote for that for two at the same time.
I'm sorry, Shira. I'm having a difficult time. I wasn't able to discern if you were interested in doing multiple initiatives or focusing on the survey initially.
Sure, both.
Both?
I'm voting for both.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Aaron, your thoughts?
I think both is interesting. Yeah.
I should probably warn you that this means you need to go back and reread the audit and then come back to the meeting in July with some ideas of what you think would like to tackle next, so.
Oh, so we're making more work for ourselves. Will, your thoughts?
Yeah, maybe I'll live to regret this in July, but I also think we probably have the capacity to do two things at once and get this survey out, but then
Okay.
also maybe review the audit and look at something. I agree, kind of, I don't know what the terminology is, but Shira mentioned the kind of pilot project or something that we should start looking into. I know a blog has been a priority for the commission, so I definitely think it's possible to work on kind of both those things at once. So vote both until July, when we all say, what do we do?
Jeff, your thoughts?
I think both, and perhaps it might be, I hear a lot of birds.
Wow.
Yeah, you do.
Birds
Someone
are
has a
coming from
bird.
somewhere.
Birds, yeah.
I think both, and maybe come to the July meeting with some ideas on what could be action items from the audit,
Mhm.
a couple ideas on what we might pursue is generated by the audit. And yeah, I think we could probably do two things at once.
Yes.
I might regret saying that too, but we'll see in July.
If you get too ambitious, I can slow you down.
All right.
Eileen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's yeoman's. It's a lofty two-part process and initiative and step but equal. But yeah, I would be remiss, I think, from a marketing and communication standpoint if I didn't say yes to both. And I agree.
Okay. All right. Well, that is what I wanted to accomplish tonight. Does anybody else have any comments on another issue or follow up on anything that we've discussed tonight?
I guess I would just add that I think the city's done a pretty good job with COVID communications
Thank you.
over the last few months. I don't think anything's been missing, or I can't think of any steps the city might have missed or actions the city might have taken that it didn't.
We did a lot of zigzagging there for a while.
Yeah,
You could do this and now you can't.
right, exactly. But
And
it was
also-
communicated clearly and quickly, promptly, I thought.
Joe, do you
Yeah.
have some thoughts?
I'm just gonna say, do you know the status of looking into reestablishing that mobile app for the city? Is that something the committee's looking at as a way to communicate with folks and have them communicate with us?
Is that the, where people could do the complaint-driven items, the kind of like a let the city know app?
Yeah, I mean, that would be built into the app. So we could push out notifications to people through the app itself. And then also they could, if they saw like a pothole or they saw some ordinance issue, they could snap a photo of it and report it to the city in the app that way. So it would communicate both ways.
Yeah, I know, Lynn, you had researched both the, there are just canned apps for complaints.
Mhm.
But we were looking for something that was a little bit more
Robust.
comprehensive.
Mhm.
And Lynn, you identified some of those, if I recall. You probably sent them to me in February.
I probably have to go back and refresh my memory since
Yeah.
there's been a lot since then. But yeah, I could dig that out for sure.
Okay.
Because did a resident design the original app?
Yes, he did. Although it really was just our website on a phone. It wasn't it wasn't as what's the word, interactive or
Right.
two-way as it could be. So I think it's definitely something that could be improved on, which is why we had Lynn take a look at what other cities had done so that we could get some ideas for building something that would work for us and be a little bit more intuitive, but not cookie cutter.
Great.
All right, last call. Anyone else?
I was just gonna say on the app piece. I when I lived in Detroit, they launched an improved Detroit app, which was a lot of the complaint issue focused, right? Identify a pothole,
Right?
you know, a water main broke or something like that. I know they started putting bus routes and stuff like that on it. I can try to, if it's helpful at all, I can try to find out who the developer was. I'm sure it's something that's white labeled, but then just send that to you, Lynn and Amy, an additional piece of information. So
Yeah, we'll have a big communication file. All right. I save all those ideas. Anything else? All right. Thank you, everyone, for making yourself available. Of course, you really didn't have any place else to go, did you? What?
Thank you all.
Hey,
Thank
the-
you.
When
The
is the next meeting?
well,
Right.
the next meeting is July 21st. But the executive order that allows us to hold meetings remotely expires June 30th.
Hmm.
And yet, at the same time, meetings are not supposed to be more than 10 people. So something's got to give in the executive orders. If the governor wants us to meet in person, just expand the number of people that can get together in a room, or she could extend the ability to hold remote meetings. So I don't know yet if the July meeting will be in person or remote. So
Can we meet
as I
outside?
know, I'll let you guys know. I'm sorry?
Can we meet outside with more than 10 people? Is that
Yeah,
an
two
option?
Yes.
of us do that, so.
Yes. I think when we do start to meet in person, we'll probably move down to the recreation center because we could put line tables up in a row, spread apart, spread the chairs apart. So we have a place to do it, but still with the limit being 10 people. I was telling Commissioner Roselle that our Historic District Commission is 9 members, plus we have a staff person. So right away, and their meeting was supposed to be July 1st. So technically, they're supposed to meet in person, and yet they would have met that maximum before anybody in the audience or the individuals bringing the, for the hearing were there. So we changed the meeting date to June 30th. So it fell within the still being able to held remotely. We could send the notices out to everybody, and we just sort of got around that one. So that's a long way of saying I don't know what's going to happen in June.
Baby steps.
Mhm.
All right, everybody. Thank you. I will send you those links, and I'll see everybody in July.
Super.
Thank you all.
Amy.
Thanks,
All right.
Amy.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Amy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
thanks everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Talk to you
Bye,
later.
everyone.